Sometimes I would hold myself by the hand, and sometimes I would kick myself in the ass. And then sometimes I would pull myself by the hair, but I would stay consistent.
Hi, and welcome to Don't Drink to Feed podcast. This podcast is all about you and all the courageous, driven women like you. We are here to inspire, to empower, to share, and to embrace one another. We will be talking with women from different backgrounds and careers about love, family, friendship, their wins and falls, and what it took for them to live the life they love. I am your host, Claudia Noriega-Bernstein, and I am so happy you're here today. Hi, everyone. I'm super excited to have a very special guest today. I'm going to try not to destroy her last name. We have Terry Tateossian, born under a communist regime in Eastern Europe. Terry's early years were marked by courage and change. At just 11, she and her parents left their country, spending 2 years in a refugee camp before arriving to the US to rebuild their lives from scratch. That experience shaped her drive, her gratitude, and her unshakable belief in what's possible. Terry went on to become a serial entrepreneur and tech founder, building a successful career in media and technology. But in her 40s, she realized that her next transformation wouldn't come from business. It would come from within. And I love that about you. At 42, she began a journey of radical self-discovery, losing over 80 pounds, overcoming emotional eating, and completely reclaiming her physical and emotional health. Today, she's the founder of THOR. We're going to talk a little more about that, and a wellness, which is a wellness brand and retreat experience empowering women over 40 to rediscover their vitality, confidence, and joy. And her story is one of strength, reinvention, and the reminder that it's never too late to write a new chapter for yourself. So welcome, Terry. I'm so thrilled to have you here.
Thank you, Claudia. It's really nice to be here.
Probably when people look at you, the first thing they pay attention is she shed so many pounds. But I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, that wasn't just it. You shed also limiting beliefs and a bunch of other things that were holding you back, correct?
Absolutely. And things that I didn't even know were holding me back, things that were so far in the shadows of my mind that I was so surprised and shocked to discover them there. Kind of like Jack in the Box hiding, and you push the button and it pops up and you're like, wow.
But you were having a very successful life. I mean, your weight wasn't an obstacle per se, you know. You were working, you were successful, you were reaching goals. So what was it that claimed that? What was it that made you think, you know what, there is more for me? This cannot be it.
It was finally what did it is I ended up in the hospital twice because I thought I was having heart attacks. And I spent 2 days each time with the doctors running every test possible. And finally, they said, you're too fat. You're very overweight. You need to maybe think about losing weight. And this was in my late 30s. And the first time I ignored it because I was too busy, right? I had better things to do. It was too hard. I didn't have time. My priorities were working and family, and I just didn't believe that it mattered. I
Right.
didn't think that anybody cared what I look like, which is completely false because I did, I cared. And that was the only person really that truly mattered what they thought, but I disregarded that, right? So I disregarded the thought of you don't like how you look in the mirror. And that should have been enough, right? That should have been enough reasons why. But every year I got worse and worse and worse. And every pregnancy I got worse and gained more and more and more. And internally, I was horrified of what was happening to me personally, physically. But couldn't really say it out loud that like, whoa, this is this is not okay. This is not good. I was too ashamed. And so I ignored it.
Right. And we tend to do that. It's like we sometimes, until we go through a process of healing, we are more concerned about what other people feel, what other people like, what other people perceive, and we don't look within and we don't get curious with ourselves. So when you were going through all that, what was the main thing that you needed to tap on to start rebuilding that Terry, or becoming the Terry that you were and starting to become the Terry that you were meant to be?
One of the main things was I had to let go of this belief that I was responsible for everybody's life around me. And so my mentality from an immigrant family, right? So I am literally not even first generation, I'm original generation. I wasn't born here. My kids
Right.
are first generation, but when you come from an immigrant family,
Mm-hmm.
communist country, Soviet Union related type of mentality,
Mm-hmm.
is that your success is going to be defined by your work ethic, your education, your financial stability. When you're an immigrant family, you come from a mindset of scarcity,
Yeah.
right? Because you're starting everything from scratch. There's not
Mm-hmm.
enough financially. And it was five of us. Actually, there was seven of us at one point. So my stepfather and my mother and I left Bulgaria, communist Bulgaria, and left my brother, my younger brother and sister with my grandmother and my grandfather. And we were in Austria for 2 years. And
Wow.
then our visas got approved to come to the United States. So then when we came to the United States, it was my mother, my stepfather, my brother, my sister. They were twins, 7 years younger, and my grandmother and my grandfather, right? So we were all here together, living in one single family home in New York and Queens. And everybody worked. Everybody had to work. What gym? What exercise? Are you kidding?
Right. That enoughness, right? That enoughness that's defined us as immigrants. I totally relate what you're saying because it's like we create that glass ceiling. We decide how much and how much is enough. And we convince ourselves that that's good enough because we already are better than what we were before. So that little gap, it's enough. And that's a good excuse to stay there. And I talk a lot with women about this, not only in my show because it's don't shrink to fit, right? Don't shrink to be in that box, but also when I coach women and we talk about inner abundance, where is it? Why do you feel guilty for wanting more? What is it that you believe in the files in your brain that is making you stop wanting more or feel guilty or remorse because you have enough and there are people that has less than you, when one thing has nothing to do with the other one? You can be grateful and still want more. But when you come from scarcity, you don't understand that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So true. There's definitely a very different mentality from when you're from an immigrant family,
Mm-hmm.
and you have had to recreate your life from nothing over and
Mm-hmm.
over again, right? So when I look back, and it's interesting because when you're living it, right, when you're experiencing this first person, don't think about it like that because that's just life for you, right? That's just
Mm-hmm.
the
It's
way things
supposed to be that way.
are, right?
It's supposed to be that way. We convince ourselves that, are you kidding me? You should be grateful. Look where you were before. Look what you have now. And you want more? How ungrateful of you.
Yes, that is the self-saboteur voice, right?
Mhm. Yeah, yeah.
Although there's a lot of people that say that to you that are not in your head too. Like I've heard those things like, what do you mean? Why can't you just be happy? Why can't you just acknowledge everything you have so far? Because there's something inside
Mm-hmm.
that is continuing to drive forward, right? It's not about having enough money or whatever it is. There's just a drive of unsettledness in a
Yeah.
sense. And when we're young, we don't know where to direct that drive. Maybe it's anxiety. We can call it anything we want. But when we're younger, that drive sometimes goes out of control. And so I became a workaholic. I worked 18, 19-hour days, 7 days a week. I think I still am. I don't think that that's ever gonna go away. I'm okay
Now you
with
enjoy
that.
it.
Yes, yes, exactly. Exactly. And that's the difference, right?
Yeah.
So when we're younger, it might be directed towards things that are not in line with our inner being, our inner values, right? And so we end up burning out and we end up using food as a coping mechanism. And high achievers usually and alcohol are very connected.
Mhm.
High performers, usually there's a lot of addictive type of behaviors that are connected to high performers. And so I didn't know any of those things back then. And so, yeah, I ended up in big trouble.
And I want to touch a subject that a lot of people know about it, but they don't feel comfortable talking about it because, in a way, they look for excuses, which is the emotional eating. So often I hear, well, I'm just gonna Uber eat something because I don't have time to cook, or I don't have time to do this, or I have time to prep, or whatever. But what we're doing is we're sabotaging ourselves and we're feeding ourselves with comfort food because we have voids. Can you talk a little more about the emotional eating and how you came face to face to that and accepting that that's what you were doing?
This was one of the biggest surprises that I discovered in this process of getting my health together
Mhm.
because I was never overweight when I was living in Eastern Europe. I was actually underweight. I was
Mhm.
never overweight when I was a teenager, never overweight in my 20s. But then this creeped in, and that's when things just got out of control. So I had never encountered that feeling of, whoa, this is not okay.
Mhm.
What's going on, right? I was out of control. And so, what I realized is that the more overwhelmed, the more stressed, the more tired I was, the more I invalidated my own self, the more I used food to make myself feel better, the more my brain learned the pattern and the habit. And then it was happening automatically. Like I wasn't even thinking about it.
Right.
It would just happen, right? And
Was a
so,
default thing.
yes, it became a default. And so I didn't know anything about nutrition back then. I didn't know
Mhm.
anything about insulin. Who thinks about diabetes? I mean, maybe now we think about it because it's
Mhm.
so prevalent. But I
Right.
wasn't thinking I was going to get diabetes in my fees. I never heard of that. And so when I started changing my lifestyle, I learned that I had to eat a certain amount of protein, carbs, and fat for each
Mhm.
meal. So I was doing that, and it turned out that these meals were very big. They were like, it was a lot of food I had to eat 5 times a day. So I wasn't physically hungry. There was no physical reason that I needed to eat a jar of Nutella because I wasn't starving, but I would still do it. So I would be okay for a couple of weeks. I would be able to lose weight, and then
Mm.
boom, the binge would hit, and it would be urgent. It would be like an emergency. It would be everything is fine, fine, fine. And then boom, like I have to have this right now, right? And so I started noticing this pattern. It was ice cream, Nutella. Once I started,
Confusion. I know. I know. I also notice when I am not emotionally regulated, that's where
yes,
I go. And if you are not, you lose the weight. Like if I don't munch at night, I'm gonna lose 3, 4 pounds in 4 days easily because I know that when I'm munching at night, which is usually if I'm worried about something or I have a project or I'm in my head and in my emotions, then I'm gonna go for the Three Musketeers or I'm gonna go for the ice cream or something that is a lot of sugar. It's gonna give me a spike in energy, and you feel like I'm good now. It's like some part of me is getting fed, not the right part of me, but some part of me is getting fed. And so I wanted to ask you, because I know that as women, especially, we go a lot through that, and more so when we are going through menopause and all these hormonal changes. What tools, if you can remember when you started the change in your life, what tools you started implementing in your life to change your relationship with food?
Yeah, so the first thing, if someone is noticing this type of pattern, the first thing is become really aware of it. So start taking notes. When did it happen? How did you feel before it happened? What did you eat that day? Did you eat enough food? Did you nourish your body physically, or were you starving all day and then you had a binge, right? Because the binge doesn't have to be Nutella or ice cream. It could be really anything that doesn't align with your goals, for example. So if your goal is, I want to lose 10 pounds in 3 months, and this is the plan I'm going to follow, and it's not starving myself, right? So that's the key. You don't want to starve yourself
Right.
all day because you will binge. I mean, that you're hungry physically.
And also your body will hold on to the fat because you're in starvation mode. So it doesn't serve you either.
Right. And you will find food, right? So in like where we live now, there's no lack of general junk food in places, so you will break your willpower. So you will end up having something you don't want to have. So that's number one, right? So write down, when does the pattern happen? What happened that day? How did you feel? Were there any emotional triggers, or what were your thoughts throughout the day before the binge happened? Because here's the thing that most people don't realize. The binge actually shows signs, in my case and in most cases of women that I work with, a few days before. So you start thinking, the thoughts come in 2, maybe more days before the binge actually happens. So you will be able to kind of have a good idea of when it's going to come, if you're keeping track, right? And then if it does happen, which anyone that is working through this, it will happen. So don't kid yourself that it's not going to ever happen again just because I'm on this diet. It 100%, it's going to happen. It's going to expect it. So you should expect it and be prepared, right? So how do you prepare for a binge? Well, what do you binge on? Brownies, cookies, chocolate chip cookies, ice cream. What is it? Cake? What is it, right? Chips, doesn't matter, right? Have a substitution ready. That is in your goals. That is in your caloric goals, right? So what I started doing is I would make these McFlurries in my blender with ice, yogurt, protein powder, some flavor, and I would make this giant bowl that looked like a McFlurry or whatever kind of ice cream, because back then they didn't have the Ninja Creami machine. And I would just eat that. I would say, okay, now it's time to have it, right? If I felt like there was going to be a brownie binge because it's like circling
In your
around,
head.
right? I would make myself a protein brownie. There's so many recipes out there. You
Right.
open Instagram, you're going to find 1 million recipes that are
Right.
big piece of brownie for 100 calories and 20 grams of protein, and you could put it in the microwave, warm it up, put a little bit of ice cream on it, and guess what? That you could avoid that binge by
Right.
getting ahead of it.
So the same way that you planned your meals, you can also plan your cravings. So you're prepared. So when those moments come, instead of grabbing the bag of chips or the bag of M&Ms or whatever it is that would not be good for you, you have this alternative that will fulfill that craving as well.
And it's such a relief. So when I learned this and I started implementing it, and I had the ice cream ready, and I would throw it in the Ninja Creami, and I would be because I knew if I didn't have the Ninja Creami, I was going for the Haagen-Dazs or whatever.
But it's also not having it at home though. Like help yourself. When my kids come home, like now they're gonna be coming for Thanksgiving, they are like, Mom, you have all these things in the fridge that I don't have in my house, and now I want to have it because they are available. So also is helping ourselves and not have that available for us. So don't buy it when you go to the grocery store.
Exactly. But when I was binging, it didn't matter because I would go to the store and get it.
Mm,
Because it was the feeling I was looking for, right? Kind of like, and I'm not going to compare food to substances, it's not the same, but it is an attempt to change and regulate internally, right? So regulate the
mhm,
nervous system and the emotional
mhm,
reaction to it. So when I would want ice cream, it was because I was so overwhelmed and agitated that everything was hot. I felt hot. So I needed
right.
to like cool myself down, and the ice cream just did that. And so
Mm,
I could have swapped easily because ultimately I wasn't looking for any particular flavor. I was looking for the feeling that it gave. And so that's the other question to ask, right? So are you physically hungry or are you emotionally hungry? Are you
mm,
looking for food that will feed your soul, like emotional food? Are you looking to
mm,
feel calm? Are you overstimulated and you're looking to kind of slow things down? Are you tired? Are you sad? Right? So there's all of
mhm,
these other connections to food that we
mhm.
don't think about.
You know, there's so many women that feel that their body are betraying them. They're like, I'm doing everything right. I'm still not losing the weight. I'm still not able to. And I don't really want to just pay attention to the weight because yes, it's a big part of your transformation. But I think that would really empower you and give you the courage to not give up and be consistent in the mission that in the vision that you have for yourself was your state of mind. But these women that are listening right now and they're feeling that their body are betraying it, what would you say to somebody that is feeling like that, frustrated, tired, they don't see a change, they don't know where to start? Yes, you give them these pieces of advice. You like, if you're gonna know, you're gonna crave, then prepare yourself and then journal, keep track. Is there anything else that they could use to start this transformation that helped you?
So this is over and over again the case with everybody that I work with and everything I have experienced personally. Your body needs time with the right approach and the right process consistently, right? So you need consistency, you need time, and you need the right approach, the right process with a proven strategy, right? So if you're
Mm-hmm.
just kind of like, throwing stuff up against the wall and hoping you just want to saw some fad diet online, or you saw, somebody's doing juice cleanses and you're going to try this, you're going to try that, you're going to try this diet, this workout, that workout, and you're never really consistent with one thing for long enough period of
Mm-hmm.
time, you're just kind of spinning your wheels. And that's what I was doing back in the day. So it gets very frustrating. And what
Right.
do? You've conditioned and trained your mind to fail, right? So now every time you fail, you gave your brain evidence like this doesn't work. So why are you going
Mm-hmm.
to do this new thing? Like nothing,
Mm-hmm.
it's not going to work. You're just going to fail. So, and the
Mm-hmm.
voice is just going to keep going and going and going until you quit. And then it's going to say, oh yeah, you see, we were right. You failed. So the advice that I have is get a strategy that is proven that has worked for many other women. So there's
Mm-hmm.
evidence into your brain like this has worked for 100 other women. And
Right.
so get that strategy and do that for a long enough period of time consistently. That means
Mm-hmm.
not just one day to the gym and one day hitting your nutrition and your calories a week.
Right.
I mean, 7 days, right? A week for many, many weeks. And then you're going to look in the mirror and say, who's that?
Right, which is probably what happened to you, after
Yes.
a period of time. But I also think it's so important, and I heard you talk about this, and I say it all the time as well, to honor all the versions of ourselves. Sometimes we get so angry at ourselves that we don't give ourselves grace. And yes, ideally, we got to have this consistency, but there are going to be moments when we're not going to do it. And then we got to have compassion for that Terry and that Claudia that that day was not aligned, was not kind to herself, was not following the plan. And the same way that we have compassion for our 20-year-old or our 30-year-old, then have compassion for this version that we are right now. And I don't like to do a lot of research about my guest because I want to learn with my audience about her. But I did listen to one of your podcast interviews, and you said you have a board meeting in your head with all your all your personalities, which I do too. And I think it's so empowering to be loving and forgiving to all the versions of ourselves. But can you talk a little more about that? How it works for you?
Yes. So once I figured out that there were some personalities that were too forgiving, because there's that, okay? They were too compassionate. They were like my loving, generous grandmother telling me, "Oh, you had a hard day today. Why don't you just take a day off? Forget about your food and your calories and your macros. Just go to bed and just sleep." Now, I had to learn to differentiate. Is this a fact, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is this true? Am I really not capable of going and maybe not even to the gym? Maybe I go to my garage and lift a couple of dumbbells around for 20 minutes and maybe I walk 3,000 steps instead of 10. Or is it true that I cannot do this? Or is this a voice that's looking to sabotage me, but in a really nice way, right? Because,
Mm-hmm.
oh, you poor thing, you work so hard. Well, okay, so does everybody else, right? How true is it? Are you sick? Do you have a flu? Do you have a fever? Is your toe broken? Is your knee in a cast? Like, is there a real reason why you cannot do the thing that you said you want to do? Because you said you want to do this, right? So is your reason valid enough, right? So like in a board meeting, if somebody comes and says January 1st in the board meeting, we are going to build a brand new automobile for this company. And these are the steps we're going to follow. And we're going to have this type of tires, this type of roof, this type of engine. And then one of the department owners comes in and says, we can't have this engine. It's not possible. We're not having this engine. You're going to want to know, well, why not?
Right.
Is it true? Do we have a workaround? Or do we just dump the whole project because we don't have an engine, right? So that's really the honest answer. So you have to learn to differentiate between, are you too nice to yourself or are you too mean to yourself? And where's the balance there, right?
Right.
And so I would have these board meetings and I would ask these questions. Is it
Your
true?
head.
You got to be the boss. You got to be the boss and the CEO of the company that you're running, and that's you. And then if your project this year is to get fit, to get healthy, to lower your blood sugar, get out of the pre-diabetic zone, right? Yeah. Whatever the goal may be, it's a very serious goal. So when the department head comes and says, we can't do anything today, we're going to binge, we're going to eat whatever we see, we're not going to go to the gym, we're not even going to walk, we're going to call out sick. How many times are you going to allow that to happen, right? Till you fire them.
Right. And then how can you say I wasn't able to do this when you didn't do what you were supposed to do it? You were not able to do it because you didn't follow the steps. Period.
Exactly.
It's not because it wasn't possible. And we are very good in looking for evidence for whatever we want. So if we want to look for evidence that we're capable to do something, we will find that evidence. But also if we want to look for evidence that we're not capable to, then we're going to be successful at that too.
Absolutely. And those personalities at the board meeting, they're very smart, Claudia. Very, very
Because
tricky.
they know you from the inside out.
They're sneaky. They know exactly what to say. Some of them are really mean. Some of them are really nice. So when you hear the nice one, after you have heard the mean one for a long time, you're like, oh, thank God.
Give me a pass. I don't have to work out today because I work a lot the whole week, right? Right.
Yes.
So you think that's one of the biggest difference between the Terry that you are today and the Terry that you were at 40?
Have like massive pity parties for myself. Yes, that was every Friday night I would have a big pity party because I would look back on the week and go, "Oh my God, I didn't do this, I didn't do that, I didn't do this." And then the pity personality would come in and say,
Hmm.
"But you worked so hard. You did all these things. You did all this, that. You did this for this person. You did that for that person." And then, okay, great, but okay, what about me though?
But it kind of become like you deserve the break, right?
Right. Because I mean, let's face it, right? So being really consistent is very hard. Going to the gym is very hard. It's
Mhm.
intimidating. Most of us, we don't know what to do in the beginning. We don't have anybody to guide us. We don't have a coach. We're trying to figure it out. And it's scary, right? It's scary and intimidating. And so it's so much easier to not have to deal with that discomfort of feeling like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing and everybody's judging me and I
Mhm.
feel like shit about myself anyway. My clothes don't fit. I don't want to do it.
Right. I think it's so important to find somebody that has walked the walk and can support you and is familiar with the excuses and are going to hold you by the hand. And I think that was what motivated you to create the House of Rose, right?
Yes, sometimes we have to hold each other by the hand. Sometimes we have to hold each other by the hair.
That is true. That is
But
true.
we gotta go. We have to do it, right? So for in my case, it wasn't for vanity. I could care less. My obstacle was accepting the fact that it's okay for me to want to look good, that it wasn't a negative
Mm.
thing, right? But that wasn't my motivator. My motivator really was, oh my God, I'm going to have a chronic disease. I'm going to get a heart attack, and my two kids are going to be left without a mother. And I was pre-diabetic. And
Wow.
so that was my motivator. So to me, I had to get over whatever the nonsense I was telling myself. And so sometimes I would hold myself by the hand, and sometimes I would kick myself in the ass. And then sometimes I would pull myself by the hair, but I would stay consistent. And even if one day I fell off, I learned right away. That doesn't mean you get another day of this stuff you did yesterday. The next
Right.
day, go to bed, cry, do whatever you got to do. But the next day, we're getting back on the plan.
And how all this transformation that you have done personally has changed you as a mom?
Oh, such a great question. So I'm happier. Interestingly enough, I have more value for myself.
Mm.
I feel like I'm teaching boundaries to my kids that I didn't know myself
Mm.
what that means. I am trying to teach my kids that the most important thing that we have in our lifetime is our health,
Mhm.
because without our health, everything is much more difficult. Everything becomes a bigger problem. And
Mhm.
it's not vain to want to be healthy. It's you're right. You deserve that. You deserve to have health in your life for as long as possible.
Do you feel you have inspired or motivate your mom or your grandma, if she's still with you, to change their lifestyle by watching you?
Well, my grandmother's passed away, so I'm almost
Okay.
50. I'm going to be 50 next year, so she's been gone for a while. My mother, not so much. My mother's in her own plan. But my kids, like, they go to the gym. My daughter actually said something really interesting to me last week. She said she was talking to a friend of hers, who said she was afraid of getting pregnant because she would become really overweight. And my daughter pulled up my Instagram and said, don't be scared to have babies because look at my mom after 2 babies.
My God. Don't you love when they do that? It's like, I know she's listening
Somewhere, right?
somewhere there. Yeah. If you could go back in time, what would you tell that 11-year-old that was leaving her country and didn't know how her life was going to look like?
What can you say to somebody that when you know that they're going to go through a lot, you did everything right. You're going to do it all right, even when sometimes it feels like you're not.
And that is so powerful to say because you had a very different mother than the mother that you are. And because you're a different mother, your kid would be a different mother too. And that, for me, it makes me emotional because I always say it stops with me, and that's what you did with you and with your kid. It stopped with you. All those limiting beliefs that hold you back and gave you just this amount of dreams that you were allowed to have no longer exist. Now you can create whatever you want to create because look at your mom. You can do anything. Everything is possible if you work hard, if you're committed, and if you have the courage to ask for more.
And help, ask for help.
Right. And ask for help. Yes. Tell me about Thor. Where can they find you? I'm going to have the links, but I want my audience to know a little more what to expect, how it is to work with you. What can they do to get in touch with you? What's the easiest way?
Yes, so you can find me on thehouseofrose.com. All the retreats for 2026 are there. I also do coaching. So I do group coaching, one-on-one coaching. And I like what I said earlier. Sometimes I hold you by the hand, sometimes I hold you by the hair. But that's what the coaching is about. It's learning how to change your lifestyle, being in a group of women that are doing the same thing, supporting each other. And you can also find me on Instagram. My name there is How Good Can It Get?
That's beautiful. And you don't have to be very overweight to make a change in your life. Sometimes you're skinny and you're not healthy. It's just learning what works for you and what can improve your lifestyle and your health and your life in general. So I am so grateful you're here. I appreciate you spending the time with me and my audience. And do you have anything else that you would like to add?
Thank you, Claudia. I really appreciate it. It was awesome meeting you.
Thank you all for listening to the Don't Shrink to Fit podcast. If you like this episode, please write a juicy comment below and subscribe to my podcast. Remember, we can only fly if we embrace each other. Until next week, be happy, be safe, and be kind to yourself.